So, morning everyone. My name's Oliver Mayhew. I'm one of the lead consultants at Professional Advantage. And today I'm going to take you through how you can optimize your cash flow using our cash management applications. So, namely B4B and Bank Reconciliation. So, cash flow optimization, the key thing here is we're looking at faster turnaround, improving those processes, better visibility of those transactions, and streamlining that whole payables process through B4B. So not only making your payments in a secure fashion and direct submission of those payments through to your banking platform, but then also being able to send out remittances, batch emails to notify your creditors of all of those invoices that have been paid. So really streamlining and improving that process, giving you better visibility over that payment process. And also with our bank reconciliation tool, again, we're looking at automation, a daily reconciliation, so something that we can do very quickly and easily, and with the tools that are available in bank reconciliation, removing the onerous task of matching those transactions that you're seeing on your bank statement to those transactions that are in the ledger. Now, I have got a slide deck here that I was planning to go through, but I've just been looking at the lunch menu, and I thought I'm going to skip the slide deck because there's a number of things on here that I'm really interested in. So I'm going to cut to the chase, and we're going to dive straight into a product demo because I need to do my reconciliation, and I need to do my weekly payment run before lunch. And I want to be first in the queue because that tandoori chicken looks pretty good. So I'll probably come back to the slide deck a bit later if we've got time, but I thought let's just jump straight in. If this is going to let me connect. Yeah. And I'm going to start with bank reconciliation. So this is the latest version of bank reconciliation. You can see here I'm in a browser. I'm using Google Chrome here. And now our bank reconciliation tool is fully supported through a web browser. This is a pre-release. This is a beta version. The official release is literally just around the corner. It's in final QA at the moment. But as I said, I need to do my reconciliation today. And we're going to do that via our bank reconciliation tool. So this is a dedicated reconciliation tool from Professional Advantage, deeply integrated into SunSystems, as you'd expect, with all of those PA products. And the beauty with bank reconciliation is we can take the statement data that you download from your banking platform and import that directly into the application. So there's no transformation of your statement data, there's no manipulation of that information, and there should certainly be no manual reconciliation of ticking things off and reconciling in Sun. We're looking to streamline, automate, and remove that onerous matching process. So to start with, we would go onto your banking platform, you would download your statements, and what we see is this process is so quick and easy that it becomes a daily reconciliation. So we can stay on top of that reconciliation process, and we're getting, real-time information. And if your bank supports host-to-host activity, then you can actually get your banking system to deliver your statements directly to you. And then as you start the day, those statements are available for direct import into bank reconciliation. And the beauty with bank reconciliation is you can import any number of statements in one hit. So they could be from multiple bank accounts, across multiple business units, and even from multiple banks as well. So we're going to grab all that information for, in this case, yesterday's transactions, and we're going to import that into bank reconciliation. And as I said, I want to do this quickly because I'm getting a bit peckish. So import statements, and it's here that we're going to browse for those statement files that you've downloaded from your banking platform. In this case, I'm using a Barclays BAI standard statement format. And within bank reconciliation, we have a library of statement modules, if you like. So we natively understand that statement format. There is some standards, MT940 and so on, but what we see is most banks will have a different statement format. And bank reconciliation natively understands those statement files. So again, no need for transformation or manipulation of that statement data. Simply download, and we're going to import it. So I simply add files into this queue. And here I would browse for the statement data that I've downloaded. So in this case, I've got a bank statement from Barclays for my main operating account that's going to detail transactions, movements on that account for yesterday. And it's at this point that I could add multiple statements. So we can literally queue up any number of statements, as I said, for multiple bank accounts, different currencies across different business units, and even from different banks as well. The setup in bank reconciliation will determine the GL code and the business unit that that statement data relates to. So it understands that linkage and connection. So I'm going to open up my statement for import. And as you can see in this dialog, we could have any number of statement files listed here. And then we've got options. So I can confirm the statement data before I import it. And this little tick box here, perform automatic matching directly after import. And that is the key to bank reconciliation. Automation of that process and elimination of those onerous tasks, that reconciliation. And that's achieved by setting up a set of automatic matching rules, something that you guys will take control of so that you understand the logic of those matching rules, how those statement lines are matched to your ledger lines. And from experience, I've seen where we've implemented bank reconciliation and then gone back to that customer. They have a library of hundreds, if not thousands, of rules that they've built up over time to ensure that when the statement is imported, those transactions are automatically matched robustly, and we know exactly how that match has been performed. And then what we're left with are those transactions that really need our attention. So we end up reconciling by exception. And there's a number associated with that, a statistic that we always try and reach for, which is an 80% automatic match. And we're seeing organizations achieve that number. And so then it's the 80-20 rule, 20% of those transactions left that actually need your attention. And as I say, you end up reconciling by exception. So the ability to automate that matching process on import is really the key. And use of bank reconciliation will evolve over time, where you will build up a library of rules. To the point where, once you've imported the statement, you'll see what's left, what hasn't been automatically matched, and then you start to think, well, are there other rules that I can add to the library here to cater for those transactions next time I import them? So we then add more rules. And this library is built up over time. And I'll take you through that matching process and the creation of the rules as we go through this. But here I'm going to import my statement. I should really put my glasses on so I can actually see what I'm doing. And it's a simple case of importing that statement file. So downloaded the statement directly from the banks, import directly into bank reconciliation. I've got a confirmation dialog here, and I'm going to go ahead and import and apply my automatic matching rules on import. So on a daily basis, we could have any number of statements queued up here. We run the import, we'll go and make a cup of coffee, come back, and everything's done. All we're left with are those transactions that really need our attention. So let's import. File successfully imported. So let's have a look at the results of that by firstly viewing our statement. So here in this function, we can actually view the statement data, and you'll see those transaction lines that are highlighted have already been matched. And we can see that based on this match type. It was an automatic match using a particular matching rule. So bank reconciliations read that statement line. It's presented that statement line to our library of matching rules. It's found a successful matching rule, and it's actioned a process on the back of that, ultimately reconciling that transaction and allocating within SunSystems. And we can see the allocation reference here. We can see the rule that was used, and the match type was automatic. If I double click on here, I can drill into that transaction. I can actually see the detail of that match. And if I click on the SunSystems transaction within this view, I can drill further to actually show the transaction within the ledger that I've matched this statement line to. So real-time drill down directly into the ledger details here. And if we realize that something had gone wrong with the matching, then we can reverse that. We could unmatch that and maybe then check our logic within the matching rules and make that more robust. In this case, clearly, what was this transaction? This was a cash check. And here is a check that's simply been matched to a check that was in SunSystems. So if I drill into this, you can see here was the check that was cleared on the statement, and then here's the actual check that was in SunSystems. This is very old data, by the way. This is test data. Obviously, the second part of this will be looking at B4B for automated bank payments. There should be no one using checks anymore. And if you are, then Nikki will be having words with you later, I'm sure. So that very simple and easy process of downloading the statement, importing it, and applying our automation has resulted in numerous automatic matches. And we can see as we go through the statement data, there's been a fairly high success rate on that automatic match. But now I'm left with those transactions that weren't automatically matched. So I can move into the do matching area, and here I can see all outstanding transactions for my bank account. So here I'm reconciling by exception. These transactions were not automatically matched, and what we have in bank reconciliation is a very clear view. In the top pane, we can see all of the statement data that's outstanding for this account, and in the lower pane is a direct lookup into the SunSystems bank account showing everything that's not yet been reconciled. So from a manual matching perspective, it's very, very easy in that, why have I still got checks in here? In that I can simply see the transactions in the top pane and then search through the bank account in SunSystems in the lower pane to find the corresponding transaction. So if we have a look at some of these, in fact, my view hasn't refreshed, so I'm just going to log out. I did say this was a beta version. Let's just do a refresh, and we should hopefully see something better. Okay, let's run that again. In a true demo style. Okay. Where's my transactions gone? Yeah, this is what I was expecting. So here's the result now of the automatic matching has completed successfully. So all I'm left with is a number of transactions here that I need to deal with manually. And I can see here, for example, there is a transfer that was a credit into the account, into our physical bank account, and now I can start to look for that same transaction within SunSystems. And I'm questioning, why did this not automatically match? Because I have a matching rule to look at these account sweep transfers, and it should have automated. However, in this case, I can find the transaction in SunSystems. It's a transfer number 9. There's a transfer number 9 on the statement. But it won't let me match. And that's why my automatic matching rule has failed, because there's an imbalance. So this may be from some currency fluctuation, some rounding difference, something like that. So obviously, bank reconciliation at this point has stopped. It will not automatically match. We need to go and do some manual intervention. And most commonly, that manual intervention would be to post a journal for the difference, and then we'll reconcile the total amount there. Well, within bank reconciliation, we can post journals directly from the statement. So no need to go into Sun and generate a journal. We'll just do it directly from here. And in this case, our journal that we're going to generate will be a balancing entry for the £1 difference down here. And we have a function for that, to generate a balance. And we can generate a balance, generate a journal, post it directly into SunSystems, either using a blank journal preset that will then go and fill out and then post that journal and then perform the reconciliation match, or we can use a predefined journal preset. So where we're seeing regular requirements to post journals, then we would most commonly expect to have journal presets so that we can simply utilize a predefined journal. So in this case, I have a journal preset. Here's one I prepared earlier, which is for currency fluctuation. So generate a balancing entry for the £1 difference in this case, post that to SunSystems and perform the reconciliation match. So my preset here is should have actually had the analysis already defined. And we can define, obviously, the entire preset as required. I'm just going to set that to not analysed. So this is going to post an entry into my bank account in the ledger. And on the other side of the transaction, well, I'm just going to post it, in this case, into a currency suspense account. And let's create a journal directly from bank reconciliation. Maybe not. Generate a balancing entry. Using our bank preset. Why does it need analysis on this account? Create a journal. So it doesn't like that. So what that should have done is created a journal for the £1 difference so that we could then post that journal and then perform our reconciliation match. So other sorts of transactions that we might see on our bank statement, and the first time we're made aware of that is when we see it on the bank statement. It might be things like bank charges or interest paid or accrued. And again, we'd be looking at generating a journal from the statement and posting that entry into SunSystems so that we can then perform our reconciliation match against it. And if we just go back to the viewing of statements in here, we should be able to find a couple of those transactions that have generated a journal for my bank charges. And with any of these grids, we've got filtering, we've got searching, so that we can home in on those transactions really quickly. And you'll see here I've got 2 bank fees that have been matched, they've been reconciled off the statement. And if I drill into one of those transactions, we can see here that it's bank reconciliation has actually generated this journal into my bank charges account with an entry into the bank account and perform that match. So no need to go into SunSystems and post those journals. We can do this directly using bank reconciliation to create those journals and then perform the match. So really very, very quick, very easy, and very robust. And the key engine, if you like, with bank reconciliation is the ability to create those automatic matching rules. It's simply not playing ball today. So let me try that again. Okay, so, and again, with this new web-based version, we can see that all of those maintenance functions that we're, for those who use bank reconciliation, actually, who currently uses bank reconciliation? I should have asked that first, so a fair show of hands. For the others, I question, how are you doing your reconciliation at the moment? Because, you know, this is, as I say, a dedicated tool for SunSystems to do the job. And it's here within the automatic matching setup, an administration function where we can start to create those rules, create that logic to look at the statement data on import, apply this matching criteria, which is effectively an if statement. If this matching criteria is true, then we're going to do something about it. And the doing something is a matching rule. And the matching rule, well, we've got options. We can either match to an existing transaction within SunSystems based on defined matching criteria, or we can generate a journal. So if we look at my bank fee matching rule, you can see that this is going to create a new transaction in SunSystems and then automatically match, and it's going to use a journal preset, a predefined preset. So whenever we encounter a bank charge on our statement, and we can see here is my if statement, the criteria. So it's a payment coming out of the account. It has a transaction type and a reference. So if this criteria is true, then we're going to generate a journal using our matching rule and using a predefined preset. So no need to journal into Sun and do that manually. We can automate that whole process.
Oliver, is there reports to show this, because it's segregation duty and stuff, to see what somebody's done through the bank line rather than, because at the moment I authorise all journals before they get posted.
Right.
Because we do it manually. So would I get a report at the end of the day to see what the person's done to get the bank balance?
There are reports, definitely, bank reconciliation reports and statement reports as well. And those are available through the web portal within the reporting engine. And bank reconciliation it's shipped with a number of standard reports out the box, so there's no need to build complex reconciliation reports. We simply install and they're there ready for use. And so, yes, there's certainly a bank reconciliation report, which I should be able to run here against my business unit. And that's going to give me my full reconciliation report, showing me everything that we need. On here, let me just zoom in a little bit. And I can see then my unmatched statement lines, my unmatched SunSystems transactions. And if we put this into multiple page, you probably wouldn't want me doing your bank reconciliation with a calculated difference of $500,000. As I say, this is very old test data. There's been a lot of stuff going on in PK1, obviously, and if we got a calculated difference of that, there's seriously something going wrong. But yes, there are reconciliation reports showing us exactly that current position. And as I say, if we consider doing this on a daily basis, which is what most of our clients will do, you know, they come in the morning, download the statements, do the rec, and we're pretty much done. And it becomes a very quick and easy process. In terms of looking at statement reporting, so we can run reports against our bank statements. So Helen, to answer your question, so we could then have an audit to see exactly what was matched, what rules were used, and then understand the logic of how those transactions were matched. And all of those reports are provided out of the box with the application. And this is a really rapid deployment. So implementing bank rec, setting it up, getting you up and running is a very quick and easy process. We just need to know the starting position of your actual physical bank account. We'll record that within bank reconciliation, and we'll run the reconciliation report. And obviously everything should match up at that point. We'll get sign off and we're ready to go. And we can start with the manual matching process, and then over time we build up this library of matching rules. So there we go, my reconciliation is done. We can move on. And moving on to now my weekly payment run. So we're going to be looking at using B4B to do our payment processing. So generating or processing batches of payments that you've prepared in your financial system or any other system, as Andrew mentioned earlier, we now have an extended feed for B4B. So we can start to integrate other systems into B4B, so we can take a feed of other types of payments. So we're using SunSystems for our standard supplier overhead payments, but you may also want to push payroll or expenses or payment instructions from a trading system, insurance payments, whatever that other system may be. Well, B4B now has a portal to accept that payment feed. And I'm going to try and demonstrate that to you right now. So first up, I'm going to do my weekly payment run for all of my suppliers. So here we're going to fire up the payment run in SunSystems. So standard native functionality in SunSystems. I'm sure you're all familiar with the payment run, where we're going to prepare a batch of payments. So I've got a number of payment profiles already here, and the one I'm going to use is my BACS payment profile. So a predefined selection criteria that's going to look at the ledger to select transactions that are due for payment. And most commonly, when preparing this batch of payments, firstly, we'd run through this with post-transaction set to no, so that we can produce an expected payment report, a payment proposal. And this process should really be regarded as your first point of approval, because it's here we're preparing this batch of payments, so we want to ensure that this batch is exactly what we want to pay. These are the invoices that we want to pay. These are the suppliers that we want to pay. And by running this function with post-transaction set to no, it allows us to produce that expected payment report. And then, of course, we can adjust the data, adjust our selection criteria, withhold transactions, and so on, and then run this again until such time that we're happy with that payment batch. And it's at that point we'll then post the transactions in SunSystems. So let's just whiz through the payment run. And if you're not using the payment run, then I suggest you go and speak to Tim, and he'll be able to explain the benefits of that. On this second screen, you can see I'm using the automated bank payment processes within SunSystems, but the only thing really I'm interested in here is this default ledger reference. That's going to be the transaction reference of the system-generated payment journal. So I can put in here that this was a BACS payment on today's date. But with B4B, we can actually overwrite that transaction reference on the system journal with a unique payment number. So almost like an electronic check number, if you like. So integration back into the ledger directly from B4B once we've completed the payment process. And we've also got options around how we're going to post the entry into the bank account. And here for my BACS payment batch, most commonly on my statement, I see one entry for the total amount of that payment run. So it makes sense to post one entry into my bank account in the ledger because I'm thinking ahead about my reconciliation and I want to see that one-to-one match. If I'm processing priority payments, CHAPS payments, international payments, then most commonly on my bank statement, I'm going to see individual entries for each of those. So I'd have a different payment profile, a different payment run, and we'll uncheck this box. So in my bank account in the ledger, I'm going to see that detail. So then my reconciliation is many-to-many matching. And that's really key because as we consider the use of this suite of tools, then we also start to consider maybe how we're posting things in SunSystems based on what we're seeing when we get that statement information back from the bank. If we change things slightly in SunSystems, it's going to further streamline and automate our process when we get to the reconciliation. So very much these applications go hand in hand. So let's run through, and I'm going to post my payment run. I don't have any money in my bank account, but that's pretty standard for me. And there we go. So now SunSystems has generated that system payment journal. It's posted those transactions and done the allocation. And if we just scoot down to the bottom of our payment run report, we can see that 10 supplier payments in GBP were settled for 815,000. And here's our first report, report for a paper trail, for an audit trail of this particular payment batch. And I'm going to leave this open so that we can refer back to that when we come to process the payments through B4B. So we've prepared those payment instructions within that source system, in this case SunSystems, and now we're looking at processing those payments through B4B. And that processing of payments is really a very, very quick and easy process as well. I'm going to log in here, and again you can see I'm using this within a browser, so we're using B4B Web. We can also use it as a desktop application, but I'm going to log in here as a named user. And this, by the way, does support single sign-on, so we could use Windows authentication to automatically log you in. I'm just using named authentication here so that I can demonstrate some of the different roles, segregation of duty. We're dealing with very sensitive information, of course, so we want to ensure that access is controlled. So let's just spin up the browser. And we're taken into the initial dashboard here within B4B. And the first process within B4B is to validate the batch of payments that we've prepared. And so under my processing tab, I have this validate payment function. And you'll see that within the validate payment function, my BACS payment profile is immediately available here in B4B. So all of those transactions that we have effectively paid within SunSystems directly available here in B4B for validation. So there's no intermediary process. There's no passing of an intermediary file or running of a batch job. It's true real-time integration into SunSystems as we'd expect from a PA application. And here within the validate payment function, you can see we've got great visibility over the payment batch that we're going to process in B4B. On the payment details tab, I can see all of those underlying transactions. So the actual raw data, the invoices that were paid. If I move into the payment summary tab, it's here that we can see what B4B is going to do with those transactions based on our setup for this business unit. And really, this is a matching process. We're matching payment instructions to a set of bank details that you have within B4B for your creditors. And that's really the key to success in B4B, is getting all of that bank detail information into B4B for all of your creditors so that it's there ready for matching within this validate payment process. And there are tools provided with B4B to expedite that initial implementation. So there's an importer tool, so we can bulk load bank details. We can get all of that information very quickly into the system. And then further to that, there is also a service that we can then utilize to automate updates of bank details if needed. So if we're taking reference data from an external system, then we can not only, you'd expect, feed that into SunSystems, but we can also then have a feed into B4B to update bank details automatically via our B4B service. And at this point, it's, as I say, effectively a matching process. We are matching the payments we've posted in Sun here to a set of bank details that we have in B4B. And if we've set everything up correctly, there should be no errors and no warnings. Most commonly, if we're seeing errors and warnings, well, it may be that the bank details for the supplier or creditor that we're trying to pay are missing from B4B. So, of course, we can't make a bank payment if there's no bank details for that supplier. And that would be flagged up as an exception. There may also be other exceptions if we're using an approval workflow in B4B, which I'm going to come to a bit later on. Obviously, we're dealing with very sensitive information. This is bank payments, it's bank details. So we want to ensure not only is this locked down and those roles are segregated, but also if anyone makes changes to that sensitive information, that there's a review process, an approval workflow. And we can enable that in B4B with email notifications as well. So it may be that we're trying to pay a supplier, but their bank record is in a state of pending approval. Something's been changed or it's been newly created and it hasn't yet been approved. So that's going to put a block, and we'll see that as an exception here. In this case, everything has been successfully matched. No errors or warnings were encountered. So I can continue with the process. I can run reports at this point as well. So if I run a report, and again, B4B is shipped with predefined reports, so there's no need to be building complex reports. It's simply plug and play functionality here. And if I check out the second page, if we're thinking about our paper trail, we've got our payment run listing showing us exactly what we posted in SunSystems, 10 supplier payments, 815,000. And then if we flip to B4B, I can immediately see that those numbers are looking good. So I know that everything that we've paid in Sun is going to be successfully validated and processed through B4B. And these reports, we can print them, save them, email them off to someone if needed. So I guess part two of our paper trail here. So now that we've successfully validated the batch, the next step within this process is to move this data set into the bank format. And when I refer to a format in B4B, we're referring to the actual output file that we're going to create. And within B4B, we have, I think it's around 500 bank formats within the library now. So this is really a global solution for multiple payment types, different banks across global geos. And so whatever type of payment you need to make and whatever bank that you use, we've got something there ready to go in B4B. So again, a very quick and easy deployment, quick and easy setup, tried and tested, approved bank formats. So it's not like we're going to have to sit there for weeks building a complex XML output file and go through testing cycles with the bank. We've already done that. That's what B4B does. That's its strength. And in this case, my UK local payments, based on my setup here in PK1, have been matched to a bank format. In this case, my bank format is a UK Barclays.net banking module. And again, that matching process and that mapping is defined within B4B so that I know if it's a GBP payment, it's going to be mapped into my UK Barclays bank format. And I simply save the data set into that banking module, into that format, ready for inclusion in a bank file. So we then move into the create bank file function. I'm just going to change my module here because I've got lots of bank formats installed. Select the right one. And if we move into the create bank file function, we'll see here those 10 payments ready for inclusion in an output file. So some runtime parameters for this particular bank file that we're going to create. This just needs me to select the type of file that I'm going to output. And you can see that some of this is being defaulted. This is new functionality in B4B, where we're able to default some of these runtimes and suggest default parameters. Again, streamlining that process so we don't have to rekey that information every time. And we can see here is the batch of that collated data. So payment instructions match the bank details, ready for inclusion to create a bank file in the prescribed format, in this case for Barclays.net. And then it's a simple case of creating bank file. Now, I'm not going to do that right now because I'm actually using the web version, so which, as I said, this is still a bit of a beta release, but if I flip to the desktop version, and we can see exactly the same data set, but within the desktop application. And so you have a choice of deployment here. We can have it as a desktop app, or we can deploy it through a web browser with a single point of deployment. And I just wanted to do it from the desktop application so that I can then demonstrate some of the new features that we're including in B4B. And as Andrew mentioned earlier, B4B's been around a long, long time, 22 years, and we've seen a great evolution through that period. But still, the core functionality remains, and the reliability and approved bank formats and all of those types of things. But we're adding new functionality all the time. And part of that new functionality is the ability to automatically and securely transmit your bank file directly to the endpoint. So directly through to your banking platform or your treasury system or wherever that endpoint might be via an SFTP process. And further to that, we can also encrypt that bank file using PGP protocol. Pretty good privacy. It's an industry standard. It's been around for quite some time. And with B4B, we can encrypt the file at creation. And if we're using a secure file transfer, then when we create that bank file, we'll create the bank file in memory, we'll encrypt it, and then securely transmit it directly to the endpoint. So there's no writing of a file to a physical disk. There's no point of exposure. It's a direct transmission to the endpoint at your bank. And I'm going to try and demonstrate that here now. When I create this bank file, it's going to create the file, encrypt it, and then it's going to securely transmit it to an endpoint. So here's my final report. We're talking about that paper trail, auditability of the payment run. We've got our SunSystems payment report. We have our validate payments to show us exactly what B4B is doing with the transactions. And now our final report, a bank file report, showing us the payments that have been included in that file. Bank file successfully created. So if I just flip here to this is our internal FTP site, which I'm using as an endpoint because I don't have an account at Barclays that I can show. But what we'll see is that that file has been created. It's been securely transmitted to that endpoint via an SFTP process. And it's sitting here now. If you imagine this would be Barclays.net, that file had been received. And then those transactions presented to the final reviewers and approvers for actual execution of funds transfer. And if I just download this file, and we can open that up, you can see that it's been encrypted using PGP protocol. So there's no way that I can actually see the transactions. I can't decipher any of this payment information because it's all been encrypted. And that encryption process uses a set of keys. So there's an exchange of keys between you as the client and the bank, so that there is a pair of keys to encrypt and sign the file, and then the bank has the same keys to decrypt and unlock that file. So very secure, very robust form of data transfer. There's no way that this can be interfered with in any way. So some really nice new features coming through into B4B, and as you can see, a very quick and easy process once we've got this set up. We prepare our payment batch, we process it through B4B, and then we're going to pay it through the endpoint, through the bank. Okay, so I might go back to my slide deck in a minute. Probably not, though. So let's just dive into B4B and have a look at some of the setup functions. This is highly configurable, highly scalable, and we see organizations who have a global presence have B4B as a centralized single point of AP processing. And under our administration options, it's here that we can see all of those configuration options. I'm not going to go through all of this, but please feel free to come and have a chat afterwards. We've got approval workflow. So this is approval of bank detail maintenance. So very sensitive data in the system. We want to ensure it's the right data that's being put in and ensure that those payments are going to reach the supplier correctly. So business unit setup. Here's our operator groups within B4B, so we can have any number of roles created within the application. So a common segregation of those roles might be, people who are preparing payments, people who are maintaining bank details, users who are approving bank details, administrator roles, and so on. And again, this is highly configurable and highly scalable. So any number of operator groups can be created to control that access at the business unit level, at the bank format level, right down to the individual action level as well. So here, if we look at a bank detail approver on PK1, they've got access to these functions. And this is self-service administration console. So it's not like you're going to have to engage and, with a consultant to come and make changes. This is something that you're going to take ownership of and be able to administer yourself and roll up and ramp up as needed. So just while we're on that approval process or that approval option, let me just try and demonstrate that workflow. And the approval in B4B is around the bank details. There's no payment approval. I just got to be clear of that. The payment approval, the actual final approval to execute the funds transfer, is going to happen in the bank, where you'll have that approval hierarchy set up. What we're doing here is enforcing an approval workflow around the maintenance of this referential data. And bank details is the key to B4B. And therein lies the complexities with B4B as well, where we have over 500 bank formats in the library, and of course every bank or payment type, there are some commonality between those, some common fields, but we'll see that those formats are quite different in the requirements to execute that particular type of payment within that particular geo. So here my Barclays.net UK BACS bank details, pretty basic stuff. Account name, account number, and a sort code. Nothing too taxing there to worry about. But of course, if I was to change to a different format, of which I've got loads here, let's have a look at this RBS Bankline format. And if I look at the bank details for my creditors within this RBS Bankline module, you'll see that the user is presented with a different form, different requirements. And this is really the strength of B4B, because it has all of this format-specific validation to ensure that if we're going to execute an international payment through RBS Bankline, well, this is the information that you need to put in. And this particular format is multifunctional. It's got multiple payment types. So standard BACS, CHAPS, international, ad hoc, and so on. And what you'll see is when I change the payment type, the form changes. So all of this is built into that format, into that bank module, to ensure that you are entering the correct data for that particular type of payment. And if I change again and look at my bank details for the creditors, this is a European SEPA module, a different form, different validation, different requirements to execute that type of payment. Going a little bit further, if I make a mistake when I'm entering an IBAN for this supplier, then B4B is going to complain. So it natively understands IBAN structures. So this is a German IBAN, but it doesn't look like it's the right length and structure for that particular country. If I then make another mistake when I'm entering that IBAN, well, B4B complains again, because it natively understands the country-specific check digit algorithms within an IBAN. So stringent validation at the point of data entry to ensure that you're putting the right information and it passes our validation rules. So I'm just going to flip back to my Barclays format because that's nice and easy. And if I make a change to a bank detail record here, so the European Consultants Agency has told me that they've changed accounts or changed banks. So I'm going to update those bank details and I'm going to save the record in B4B. Now this is triggering an approval workflow. Okay, so it's forcing me to enter a reason here as to why I'm changing that. And then I commit that change. You can see now that this record is pending approval. So it's locked within B4B. I cannot make a payment to that supplier until those changes have been reviewed and approved. So we can log back into B4B as a different user, a different role. And when I log in as this user, you can see that they have a different menu. They're assigned to a different operator group. And this user has access to viewing bank details, but more importantly, approving those changes. And here I can see the full audit. And all of those changes are automatically audited in B4B, and we can run parameterized audit reports against that data at any time. And then I've got the option here of approving or rejecting the change request. And with this approval workflow, we can also enable email notifications to expedite that process as well. Just before I go ahead and approve, I'm just going to flip back here into SunSystems, because SunSystems has a bank detail function. And it may be that you want to see bank details for your creditors within Sun. So here I've got a record for the European Consultants Agency. And you can see there's an account number and a sort code. When I approve this in B4B, a number of things can happen. So obviously it's going to unlock the record, so we can then utilize that in a payment run. I'm getting the 5-minute warning. Can't believe that's gone so quickly. So a number of things can happen. Unlock the record, notify the originator of the change that that's been approved, and they can now make a payment to that supplier. And we can also then synchronize that approved data into SunSystems. And you'll see here's my updated account number and sort code, with some audit that this was approved today by this user. So again, real-time integration back into SunSystems. B4B should always be regarded as the master for bank details because we have all of that stringent validation based on the payment type that's being executed. But if you want to surface those bank details into SunSystems, then we have a configurable synchronization process. So we've processed payments. We've sent our file securely, an encrypted file, automatically, securely to the bank, to the endpoint. Those payments have now been approved and authorized. So we can look at generating a remittance document. Final step of the process for the payables user. Here's my batch of BACS payments ready to be remitted. And this really is simplicity in itself. And this is effectively eRemit, so anyone who's familiar with eRemit, this has simply been reported and dropped into B4B. So it's now under the same dashboard. And we would simply select all and send the email. It's that easy. Now, I'm not going to send emails from here, but we can certainly preview. And B4B has a powerful report designer built in so that we can produce a customized remittance document based on your organization standards. So logos, fonts, and whatever information we want on there, we can drag that onto the remittance document as well. Okay, and then it's a simple case, select all, send the email. I've got so much to tell you about B4B in so little time. I can't believe that's an hour gone already, but hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview and a bit of an insight into B4B and where it stands at the moment, and bank reconciliation as well. So going back to that initial slide, cash optimization. hopefully you'll see that those applications hand in hand will really help to expedite that process for you. I pretty much run out of time, which is no bad thing, because PowerPoints for me are not the best. But in summary, this is what we're looking at with B4B, preparing a batch of payments. And that could be in SunSystems, as we saw there with the payment run, or it could be in any other system. We then process that through B4B. We match those payments to the bank details that we have for our creditors, create an output file, securely submit that to the bank, and then get that paid. And then we'll send a remittance document thereafter. So just before we break for lunch, and I'm looking at that tandoori chicken again, I also need to just finish my weekly payment run. I've done my rec, I've done my BACS payments, and now I need to just execute my European SEPA payments. So I'm going to go ahead and post in SunSystems. Let's initiate that payment run. I still don't have any money. And we'll post the payment run in Sun. So there we go, SunSystems payment run complete. A number of euro transactions have been settled. Let's go straight to B4B. Validate the payments. There's my SEPA batch sitting there ready. And we can see exactly what B4B is doing with it. I can run my reports, no errors, no warnings. These payments, based on my setup, have been mapped into my European SEPA format. Save for format processing. I'm just going to flip into that different module, create my bank file. And it really is that quick and easy. Or certainly should be. Runtime parameters, file name. This is going to create an XML file, some additional runtime parameters, and again, you can see this is format specific, and create my output file. And if I just jump to my endpoint again, there's my SEPA XML file securely transmitted to that endpoint, and again, fully encrypted using the PGP protocol. Lots and lots going on with B4B, and trying to squeeze all of that into an hour presentation is quite difficult, but hopefully it's given you a bit of an overview and an insight of some of the capabilities that are available. I think on that note, we're just about ready for lunch. So thanks very much for your time this morning. If there's any questions, then please come and find me over lunch. I'll be at the tandoori chicken bar first in the queue. Thanks very much.